bees are dying, and our survival depends on them. That's why 4RBs created the Pure Wave Cell, a breakthrough quantum device proven to help hives thrive, doubling colonies and boosting honey production naturally. Every jar of our Pure Wave honey fuels this mission, supporting beekeepers worldwide. Visit 4RBs.com. That's the number 4RBs.com, and use code WITF for 20% off. Save the bees! Save us all!
Where in the Folk is not and should not be viewed as a news source. Any names, places, or likenesses mentioned are purely fictional, and any information discussed is purely speculative. Guest opinions are their own and do not reflect those of anyone else. Where in the Folk is not responsible for content accuracy of any stories that are told or what people do with these stories. This show is vulgar, sometimes graphic, and due to its content, it should not be viewed by anyone actually.
Welcome to another episode of Where in the Folk. I hope everybody's had a great week, and thank you for joining Stephen and myself, Cecil, as we dive into something that we don't always cover, but this will be a nice little subject. Not everything from the past is gone. Some of it didn't disappear; it just got quieter. Hidden in the mountains of northern Spain, there's a culture that doesn't match the rest of Europe, a language that doesn't quite connect, beliefs that don't fully belong to the present, and history that doesn't quite start where it's supposed to. It's the Basque people, and the possibility that what survived there was never meant to, potentially. So, hiya, Crystal.
Hey, Crystal.
So I'll leave it up to you. Where do you want to get started with it?
Man, I don't know. The Basque, it's one of those oddities, or it seems to be an oddity, especially the way that they are in Europe, and they don't match up. Their language does not match up with any Indo-European language. Even Sanskrit matches up, is considered to be a Euro language, whatever I was trying to say there. So
they have some other language. They have their own little versions of Sanskrit. Like, right here's our ancient artifact.
Yes. Yep.
Some wording on it. No, their alphabet is weird. Supposedly, I'm not a linguist, but yeah, there's a lot of strange things there for sure.
Yeah, they've got one of the highest percentages of Rh negative blood in any place in the world. Up to in some places it's up to like 47% of the population is Rh negative.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah, and I guess that's what first drew me to the getting interested in the Basque and the Berbers. They were in North Africa. And the Berbers, they didn't, you wouldn't necessarily think of them as being in North Africa because they look more like us. Yeah. But I guess so. Immunity. Yeah, I know there were some people, that were hit hard with, whenever COVID came around. Some of the people that I've talked to about it, they, it was really, really tough on a lot of people with negative blood types. But there were a lot of people who had a really tough time with it as well. But I'm not really sure what all there might be immune from. I did find out something interesting last week. Is my niece and her husband and their daughters are all O negative.
Oh.
Hey, Heather. So I thought I was the only oddity in the family, and yeah, no, my niece is a Rh negative. So that's kind of So I thought that's kind of interesting. I guess I could receive blood from them since they're O negative, which their blood is the universal blood. Yeah. So I guess that, and what I guess the other one would be null. So, hey Heather,
I'm O something. I get it done every like decade, and then I remember it for a while, then I forget. But this last time I remembered it was O something, and they said I could donate blood to a lot of people, and that's all I really
Okay.
remembered.
Okay, yeah. So O positive is the next universal blood type, is my
That's what it
understanding.
was.
Yeah,
That's
O
what it was.
positive, and O negative can give to anybody because, and that's weird to me. You know how that happened and how that much of the population can be. Wow, no, okay, cool. Yeah, O positive is a great blood type.
And
It's
you said you're RH negative or you are
yeah,
O negative?
yeah.
You're RH
Yeah,
negative?
I'm RH negative. I'm A negative is what mine is. So
That's so
hey,
wild
man.
because like one of the things with RH negative people is like higher IQ and like psychic abilities and like feeling different or out of place. But those top two, I would strongly say that they fit in with you just because your memory of like your recollection, like you can recall things so like that. Like I can't remember the name of the person that I just learned her name 15 minutes ago. like and I've been like even at my job, I've been doing a job for almost a decade, and
Mhm.
I know people's names. And then when
Yeah.
somebody asks me their name, I'm like, that one person. Like
Yeah.
I've worked with for almost a decade.
Yeah. 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 I'll say this. I tell my wife this. The good thing about having a decent memory is that you can remember things. The bad thing about having a decent memory is that you can remember things.
Exactly.
so it's a double-edged sword, in a manner of speaking. So yeah, with the Basque, it's that's the thing. People have wondered, where they don't fit in with anybody else. There's a high percentage of them have a RH negative blood type, and their language does not match up with any Indo-European languages, is what I was trying to say a while ago, and I couldn't get it out. But they have their own customs. They had their own religion before Christianity moved into Europe. Their worship, their main worship was Mari, who was the goddess of earth and nature. And then her consort Sugar, the dragon serpent, which is I don't know, that just blows my mind, that the dragon serpent. But there were a lot of hey Nick with the dragon serpent. And to me, I don't know, I may run us off in the ditch with this right here, but I have a whole theory on Dan, and I know there are other people that are pretty sure that they've already proved it. Just like you have in Ireland, you have the Totha. Hadley may have to come on here and pronounce that one. Totha de Danann. Guess where that ties into? There's no doubt about it that the tribe of Dan moved up and down through the area. Or the Basque somehow related to them. It could be because they had some things. Tutha de Danann. Yeah. We need to do that show sometime. That'll be fascinating as well. Yeah, but they had their own festivals. And they had all kinds of stuff, and that was a common thing. It's in the fact that one of their deities, ancient deities, was a serpent. Yeah, we'll have to get you on that one for sure. Because Dan, their symbol for their entire tribe originally was a snake, was a serpent. Yeah. And so apparently some of the leadership of it didn't necessarily like that they were the serpent tribe. So they changed it to an eagle, I think maybe holding a serpent or something like that. So, you had that. One of the fascinating things about about the Basque people, whenever they've done their DNA studies and stuff like that, is that they have not really mixed in with the rest of Europe the way everyone else did. They've pretty much stuck to themselves. It's kind of like I don't know, I guess in the mountains where they live, it kind of served as a wall, a natural wall or a natural border to keep them separate from everybody else. And whenever they've done the DNA studies, they have found that the people, my understanding of that is that it breaks down to about 5 different dialects. We speak the way we all have our Southern slang here, and then you go down in Louisiana, and it's the Southern slang is a little bit different. And people in the Northeast, they speak differently from both of us. People in California, the Midwest, it's different. We're all speaking the same language, but we all tend to, depends on what region that you're from as to how you're going to sound whenever you talk. And from the DNA studies with the Basque people, they tend to stick with the people of their own dialect or their own, like different dialects. Yeah. Whenever they would marry, they would tend to stick with the same dialect. And the other thing that I learned was that the women could actually receive property as an inheritance. They have property rights. And sometimes the property, the family farm or house or whatever, it was passed on to the daughter instead of a son. Because I guess if a son they didn't trust him as much as the daughter, it would pass on to the daughter. And that was pretty much unheard of, in old times. The only thing that I know about, that I've ever read about that comes close to that, is in ancient Israel, whenever they were going into the land of Canaan, and the daughters of Zelophehad. He had 5 daughters. He didn't have any sons. And they went to Moses and they asked him and said, Moses said, our dad died here in the wilderness. How are we going to inherit what our dad was going to inherit whenever he would have entered into the land of Canaan? So Moses went to the Lord with it. And the Lord told him, says, as long as they marry within their tribe, the property that they were going to receive, they can still receive it. And in ancient Israel, it would have been like the son would have been adopted by the daughter's dad. And that's how it would have passed on from generation to generation, would have continued to pass on. And that, to me, that was just too much of a coincidence with the Basque and ancient Israel. So I don't know. Do you think that right there is just a coincidence that they happen to have the same idea, or do you think it could have been influenced from someone there?
I mean, it could have most certainly been influenced from somebody there, because that's the one thing about it. Like you stated, like they don't really fit in with the surrounding areas at all. Like most European populations today is like a layer of migration, but the migration didn't seem to actually take in with the Basque people.
Right.
So researchers look at the Basque and something kind of feels off about them. They show continuity with very early European populations, but they're less influenced by later migrations than surrounding groups. I wonder what could cause that. Like, did they just kind of like ward people off, or things like that? And I don't know. It's really strange.
Yeah. It's like I said, I think to me, from this is my opinion, and it's an opinion only, and somebody can debate it, argue whatever they want to do with it. It doesn't matter. I know that the tribe of Dan, they were supposed to have conquered an area down there close to, would have been in the southern part of Israel.
Yeah.
But the native population that lived there was a little bit too much for them, more than what they wanted to deal with. So they went way up north. And they founded a city, or they took over a city called Laish, way up in the north, where they weren't supposed to be in the beginning. And during the time of the judges, when you get to like Judges chapter 3, chapter 4, I forget one of the battles that they were fighting, and the question was asked, said, "Why did Dan stay in their ships instead of coming and helping us fight?"
Mhm.
At that time, that would have been like, I don't know, 1200, 1300 BC,
Mm.
probably 1300 BC or earlier.
Yeah.
And they were already out in the Mediterranean traveling. And my understanding from history is that the descendants of Japheth, those were the ones that kind of went north and they started migrating into Europe. And so we know that the tribe of Dan, they went down. They gathered up together, with some other people from the Levant, which Syria, Israel, modern day times in there, and they used to go down into Egypt and they used to conquer some cities and stuff like that, which was something that they did. Okay, medieval France, yeah, okay, yeah, but that was the case. So I mean, there's no doubt whenever you do that. And the Phoenicians, they were a big influence. They were a seafaring people as well, and nobody wants to talk about that. Those shepherd kings that used to come down into Egypt and cause a lot of damage and take control over some things like that. Hyksos, if you look that up if you can find it in Egyptian history, sometimes the Hyksos, or that's how I pronounce it, they would go down into Egypt and they would take over for a while until they would get kicked out. So,
I heard that. Now, when I was reading about this and things like that, the Basque region is like it's real mountainous.
right.
Some say it's hard to access, some say it's easy to bypass. But even with that, over the generations, you figure there'd be a lot more influence because people back in the day tended to do things that were hard. Whoop whoop, Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie.
But it sounds like they lived in the perfect place where I kind of want to live, where nobody would bother them.
Yeah.
So they didn't get absorbed like everybody else. They mainly just stayed where they were. Didn't have really any fighting, any spending, just being there. Now that could play into it, but like I said, back when people started exploring more, they did the things that were hard. So if something looked like it was hard to pass, they was like, that's where I'm going. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know if that really plays into why they stayed to why they are like they are right now. Oh, it's really strange.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's what was it? Oh, I need to find it because there was they had a Bigfoot type creature that would was like the protector of the land or something like that. It was a hairy oh my goodness. Oh, that's bothering me now that I can't find it. I only heard that name once. And okay, here it is. Basajaun. I'm a Basajaun. That fella right there was the Lord of the Forest, a large, hairy guardian who protects livestock and taught agriculture to humans.
I mean, that's completely possible. And like, honestly, who's to say it wasn't a Bigfoot creature?
Is that not how they're described?
That's exactly how it's described.
So, yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the Native Americans, there are stories from the Native Americans that talked about how they used to trade with them.
Yeah, exactly.
The creatures we call Bigfoot, the forest people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And back then, even during the Ice Age, the woolly mammoth and people like that were still around. Oh yeah, and don't forget to like and subscribe and give a thank you, Linda. But yeah, even back then, we still had the woolly mammoth and things during the Ice Age, and that's one thing that people think about the Basque people. That's one theory, is that they were just kind of isolated during the Ice Age, and people just ended up not coming there. So they held on to their stuff. But if you don't think the Bigfoot is still existent today, and it's impossible, but during this time, it's quite possible they could have been around, because during that time we still had mega creatures like the mammoth, the giant sloth, the saber-toothed tiger, things like that. So
Right.
and there was different species of human being too at that time that everybody knew about. So it was hard to say.
Yeah. So it's with that right there. And I mean that was part of their mythology, whenever you talked about their goddesses, how they had the goddess of the earth, Mular, was the Mother Earth deity that they worshiped. Well, they said they referred to it as Mother Earth because it was the mother of all living creatures. That's why everything on here, can survive, is because of Mother Earth, according to their thoughts and beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Oh,
but
Mother.
Yeah. I didn't look one up, but I should. Some of their contests they have during their festivals is lifting heavy rocks. if you can find a video of that, that would probably be good, because that's it's picking them up. And yes, you are very useful. And thank you very much.
Yeah.
So with that, their festivals would be I just had it.
They call it something. They call it Hira Keolok.
Yes.
Let's see. I hate the way that they pull up videos now, because you don't know if it's actual video or what is.
Yeah. Yeah. Street theater, music, sports, Maritime Festival, ancient carnival rituals.
I got pass this in here.
Hey, Alan.
Right here's I think this is a video of what you was talking about right here. We'll watch a little bit of it and see what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
30 minutes long. That's a little bit of their language.
Yeah.
I will say, just watching these snippets of this video, that's beautiful country right there, ain't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That may be the place to go to. Just don't tell anybody where you're going.
I'll learn that language. I got a chart. Look, here's the chart for it. I just gotta learn my ABCs, right? A B D E E V G Hagski E Jota Ka Italy Emi Ini Ini O P Q. Yeah, I could learn that.
Maybe.
I speak the English language so well.
The wordsmith of our time.
Yeah, the wordsmith. Oh, but even the language, like, even though it's kind of like unique to the area, and it's almost like it's derived from a kind of a dead language in a way, but it just never went away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even the language is kind of like beautiful in its own way. It's weird.
Yeah. There have been people who've tried to learn the language, using Google or whatever, and it's kind of like, and they didn't have a base for any of it, because it doesn't match up with any European language. It's I don't know. It's kind of like somehow these people stayed isolated for the most part.
Yeah.
For thousands of years.
Yeah, the language is the coolest thing, because like language is, even though I have trouble speaking it, I know a little bit about it. Like they belong to some kind of family. Like they have some kind of origin part, and it became a mesh. Like they got Spanish, French, Italian, Latin that kind of turns into Latin. You
Yeah.
got English and German, and it's like Germanic, and then you have Irish and like Celtic languages and stuff like that. They have some kind of family, but with the language that the Basque people speak, I already forgot the name of the language. What do they call the actual language?
You're something. It's your Cardi or something like that.
Is it like is it y'all? Is it like y'all skull do knock or something like that? Y'all skull do knock.
That may be it. It's
That might just be the people. But like their language doesn't have a family that derived from. It's almost like it's the one of the origin families in a way. If you know what I mean, like
right.
hmm.
Yeah.
It's Orskara is the language.
Ascara. Yeah, that's it. Ascara. Yeah.
So like the research I have here says it means that it was before Latin, before Celtic tribes, and possibly even before widespread farming cultures is where the language developed. The thing about that is, where would the people came from? Because did they just sprout up right there, or did they move in there, or like, because language is kind of the fundamental of where you started from, or where your people started from, or where your culture started from. I don't know. It's really strange. Really strange.
Okay.
But it's made it through like the Roman conquest, the Muslim rule in Iberia, the rise of Spain and France, and the dictatorship under Franco. All this suppressed the language completely.
Yeah, and they have held on to their language, their customs, their whole deal. They held on to all of it. Whenever it was the Iberian Peninsula, before it was called Spain and Portugal, that's what it was. So that's interesting. There, the Moors. Even when the Moors came through, the Basque still remained the Basque. The Moors, they had a lot of influence in Spain, no doubt.
I like how
came in.
I like how like a lot of their words end with the sound, like like the Eka, Mindia, like Elargia, like things like that. Like it has that at the end of it, like it.
Right.
That's pretty nice. That's
yeah.
Good.
Did you look it up to see what percentage of the Basque DNA or their genetics are Cro-Magnon?
Nope, but I can. Of the people. Let's see. They say, of course, the search engine I use is saying that there's no scientific evidence that there's a certain percentage of Cro-Magnon. But I mean, you gotta look, if you look into the skull patterns and things like that, that's untrue. I'm like, I don't know.
I'll be back in just 1 minute.
Uh-oh, leaving me alone? That's not good. But yeah, the Cro-Magnon thing, if you look at the skull patterns and things of the people in the region, they kind of do share a fair, like they do share a lot of similarities with Cro-Magnon people. But the grammar is really wild, and if you're out there listening, then you probably want to go ahead and at some point go listen to videos of it, because you can find videos of people just speaking the language, and it's really intriguing. It's an intriguing language.
Mhm.
But there is the lost family theory too, that the entire language families, they have just disappeared over time. Like, that's a fact. Dead languages are everywhere, like all throughout
Yes.
history. And Ursukara could be the last member of an extinct family that people just don't know about. And there's other people that think that that's actually Atlantean. not
Right.
from not from Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That right there, that's another theory, that goes on, is because you wind up with the Basque, who are they have a fairer complexion, than most people in Spain and Portugal. And then, we talked about the Berbers in North Africa, and they had a fairer complexion, and a lot of times they would actually have blue eyes or gray eyes or green eyes, something like that. So they truly didn't fit in with what you typically think of Egypt or North Africa.
Crystal, that's a good question. How large is the Basque population? It's around 2.1 to 2.4 million. It's not a very large population, but it's bigger than Laurel County. But
Yeah.
but you gotta think too, over there, like, most of their countries and things of that nature are not the size of states.
Right.
So 2.4 million. How many people are in Kentucky, for example? Let's see. Oh, I know. How many people live in Kentucky? 4.6 million. So we kind of double it here. But that's just the way that is. The Atlantis connection is pretty cool because they do sit right on the Atlantic, and there's a lot of speculation around it that they're just people that kind of migrated when the Atlantis sunk. I wish we could find Atlantis.
Yeah, that would be cool. It's some weird things go on. We remember we were doing we did a show one time about Mu and Lemuria and some of the lost continents and stuff like that, and in Vietnam, and I think it may actually be a different country in northern Vietnam. Where they had from time to time, most people there, they're little darker complected and mostly really dark hair. But sometimes they would have kids that would be born to be blonde headed. Look like mom and dad, but they have blonde hair. So somehow some genetics or something kind of popped up from somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. So I mean, yeah, it's completely possible that this is it. Mr. Dale believes that it's out in where did he say it was? Not Africa, somewhere else out through there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you think we're ever going to find Atlantis? I really hope we do.
There've been a lot of people, have thought that they found it. They're trying to go by the description of what Plato gave, which once again, in what was considered possibly Greek mythology or some kind of oral history that there might have been a grain of truth in. Plato claimed the information that he had received, that Atlantis sunk 9,000 years before his time. Well, from when Plato lived until now, you could add another 2,600 years to it, and that'd be about 11,600 years ago. And it was roughly somewhere in that time period whenever a massive flood took place. So, I mean, yeah, you can call it myth if you want to, but I mean, there's some evidence behind it. So.
one of the I want to cover one of the darker histories of the area, and it's the witch trials. Did you hear anything about that?
No, 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 no.
So, and of course, all this was happening in the 1600s. That was the craze back in the 1600s. You're a witch. You're a witch. I'm gonna put a stone on you. Like, you know what I mean? And this wasn't, and of course, in northern Spain, when places like this was no better than it was up there in New England here. But in the small town of Zurgaramurdi, surrounded by forest, hills, and cave systems, the caves weren't random. Locals had known them for generations, and they were tied to like stories of older traditions.
Mhm.
So, in the mountains near the French border, the villages that were surrounded by caves, not hidden but known ones, the kind of people grew up hearing about. The accusations and how specific they were, though, was kind of strange. This is where it really gets interesting. In most of Europe, witch accusations were vague, inconsistent, or often politically motivated. Like if you stole my, I don't know, chicken wing recipe, I'd be like, he's a witch. You know what I mean? And
Right.
kind of where it goes. But the stories had patterns. People described night gatherings such as Akalari, fires lit inside caves, dancing, feasting, encounters with dark figures, later labeled as a devil. And even stranger, multiple people gave similar descriptions in this particular area, and children involved in testimonies is what really always ignites the witchcraft thing. And
Right.
most, like, I feel like everything comes full circle. Back then, they were believing these kids when they're like, "Oh, this is a witch," and then you get to like when we were kids, our parents didn't believe anything we said, and
Right.
now everything a child says is gospel again. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah. 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 You're right. You know, that's interesting. You know, I mean, it's in 1492, whenever Columbus sailed, that was the year that Spain decided that everybody either had to that's when they decided all the Jews, you know, had to either convert to Catholicism or they had to leave the peninsula. They had to get out of Spain. So with those witch trials, and since the Basque region is in northern Spain, you know, that's not surprising that you would have witch trials there, similar to that. You know, we talked about that earlier in how they part of what they worshipped in their ancient past was the earth. Well, what were the people in New England doing? You know, they were going out and they were coming up with herbal remedies and things like that. It wasn't necessarily that they were, you know, cursing people or turning people into dogs or cats or something like that. You know, they were going out in nature and they were doing things like that, which is very similar, you know, to what Wiccans do today. You know, that's still kind of a nature. It's more of a nature type thing. You know, if somebody's a witch in Wicca. So, you know, that part right there is a commonality of what the rest of Europe had. So wherever the influence came for the Basque, it seems like that same influence, you know, passed on over to Ireland and Great Britain and other places like that, you know, because that was a very common practice. Whenever we've talked about that in the past, you know, we talked about Samhain and other things like that around Halloween.
Now, the witch trials in New England, have you ever heard the theory of ergot for being the reason behind the witch trials in New England?
No, I don't think I've heard that theory.
Well, ergot's a fungus and it kind of grows on like wheat and things like this, and that's what they were growing up there. And I reckon it can cause hallucinations and things of this nature. And apparently that's what most of the witch, like people blaming people for being witches up there. Everybody was just kind of tripping out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I mean, in this particular part of the world, though, they were blaming like thousands of people of being a witch. They were literally a lot of people were, you know, tried, and several people were executed for being witches in the area.
Yeah.
But the real strange thing is, the Spanish Inquisition,
Mhm.
when they did that, the people that were doing that kind of didn't buy into it. So a lot of people were acquitted. So in this particular area, it seems like just everybody's running around town like that whole, I don't know, mass hysteria essentially is what it would be, I guess. Like
Yeah.
everybody's a witch except for us, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of that reefer madness, that
Yeah.
1936 film of propaganda.
I wonder if that ever made that guy who made that film upset. I don't know if it was really a thing whenever that he first released it back in what, the 20s or 30s or 50s
Yeah,
somewhere.
I think it was 1936, I think, but I could be wrong on that date.
To think he made that movie to keep people from smoking herb, and dumbass teenagers such as myself in the 90s and early 2000s used to sit there and do exactly what he's trying to get you not to do and giggle like madmen watching that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, well, see that right there. I mean, one of the big products that people used to grow in Kentucky was hemp.
Yeah.
They made all kinds of stuff out of it, and it was a big money crop in Kentucky. You know, half the you got the reefer madness. Yeah, of course, you live there. You know, half of your state's the highlands, and half of your state is the bluegrass area. So
yeah,
so you got part of it really good for farming.
I don't want to go too far off the rails on this, but that it's still a sensitive subject to me because the whole propaganda behind it, like I haven't done it in years. Full disclosure, I stopped doing it because it started making me really paranoid and like having panic attacks. I don't know what happened. It just flipped a switch. And I was like, well, I can't do this anymore. But the whole propaganda behind that, essentially, it seems like the main focus of having it banned was because of somebody that had something to do with paper. Right.
Yeah. Somebody else wanted in. It's just like not to get into your politics, but it's they'd had it to where it was legal to have I guess hemp farms again in Kentucky, or grow marijuana, to produce it there in Kentucky, and a bill was passed to ban that. Again, last year, I think it was.
Yeah, it's insane.
They proposed a bill for it anyway. I'm not sure. I didn't follow up on it to find out where that went, but
I don't know. Where I come from, I know a lot of people that grew some pretty massive crops back in the day. There was one fellow that was in High Times from over there, where Tully and I come from, and I don't know how he got by with this, but it was in the 70s or 80s, maybe even the early 90s. He was in High Times, and they had pictures of him standing in his field in Clay County with things like with plants way taller than him. Is nuts. I was like, how's he getting by with this without getting arrested?
Turns out, that's what a lot of people were doing there in Kentucky. They had some big farms, that were growing a lot of that stuff.
I don't want to be too crazy about this, but before my great uncle passed away, he used to tell me a story. He's like, yeah, we just go down the road and pick a bud right off the plant and chew on it, And I went over to his house one day, and I was looking down the side of his trailer, and he had 3 plants that were about 3 feet taller than the trailer. Wow. And I said, buddy, what are you doing? He's like, you can grow 3. I was like, those are 12 feet tall, man. He's like, I ain't gonna say nothing. And then
did you see Larry? Did you see Larry's comment?
No. Well, my mother grew up on, Larry says my mom grew up on reefer madness propaganda. She thought it would make me nuts as a teen, but I kept on getting B's and A's in school. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened. That's pretty accurate. I don't condone doing it for children or anything like that. I think you should be an adult before you start taking any kind of mind-altering substance, but to me, it's no worse than drinking. Honestly, drinking is a lot worse, in my opinion. And I was alcoholic as well, so I know both sides of the story.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 Most times somebody's been smoking, they're usually not driving 90 miles an hour. So
no, you get pulled over for driving too slow. That is funny. I was about 18. I hate to go off on a story, but I was about 18 and we was cutting school. I was in my last year of school and we was driving down the side road and we was doing, the devil's lettuce. And I reached over and like threw it out. And when I looked up, like the car was like tilted. I was like, what's going on? And my buddy was trying to light a cigarette and he's leaned over on me. He looked up, he said, dude, I think we're in a ditch. We were riding a ditch, like just riding it. And I found my hand on the wheel, and when I looked up, my hand wasn't even on the wheel. I put my hand on the wheel and pulled it down. Things like that would happen.
So you don't guess. So you were too messed up to roll one, so they made you drive, huh?
We rolled it before we left the house. but yeah, it was good times back then. Good times. To be a kid again. To be a kid. Now I struggle. Now I suffer from anxiety. But back to the Basque people. I mean, there's a lot that can go into it. The Rh negative blood type, that's really unique. The language is really unique. Because there's no trace of where it came from. There's no backing it to a single origin. The traditions are kind of unique to the area. There's some traditions, like you stated, further away that kind of play into those traditions that they have as far as houses go, things like that, and property. I just don't know. Like, when it comes to a culture like this, could it be one of these lost civilizations? Could it be like a remnants of a wider empire that people haven't heard about, such as Tartaria?
That very well could have been the case. It's we've talked about. I know you're very familiar with Tartaria, and Atlantis always comes up. In a lost civilization. Whenever you think about it, whenever you have something that catastrophic that takes place, and the population is reduced down to less than 1 million people, being on the very high side of it, and quite possibly much lower than that. Everybody's starting from scratch again, no matter how high the technology was. It's just like if World War III pops off and all these nations with nuclear weapons decide to start popping those things off, and it decimates the world's population, and it wipes out power grids and everything else. Well, guess what? Everybody's back to living like they were 400 years ago.
Exactly. And I mean, it seems like the world goes through a lot of different resets. That's one of the big things about the ancient world technology and things. You find that there's probably been at least 7 or 8 different resets where we've hit a pinnacle peak in technology and literature and intelligence, and then we do something to fuck it up, or nature does it for us. There was a asteroid that hit, not asteroid, but one of the super volcanoes went off. I can't remember when it was, but it wiped out the majority of the human population to where there was like a few thousand people left.
Yeah. Would that have been the Kilimanjaro earthquake or Pompeii or?
No, I feel like it might have been in like Indonesia or somewhere. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It could have been. Yeah, it's with a volcano. Whenever one goes off like that right there, it'll put so much soot and ash and everything else up into the atmosphere that it takes a very long time for it to clear up again. It's you would have your temperature changes would be extreme. With the sun's blocked out all the time, you're going to miss out on summer. You're going to miss out on growing seasons and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about endless winter. Yeah, people would be on the move. Those who survived it would get to a warmer climate. Those who got there, they would be part of rebuilding humanity again.
But I wonder, like for this particular thing, I wonder if there's other communities like this. I'll say there is. That's why I was keying in to get information on other communities that were similar to the Basque people. And when it comes to that, it makes you think, like, was it a situation where they're in some kind of reset like this? That, with majority of the world population dying from the famine and things like that, because you probably couldn't grow food. People were getting sicker, things like this, because they use a lot of herbs to cure things back then, a lot of flowers and things, so they wasn't around.
Right.
Like, maybe the area just dwindled down to like 20 people, and they somehow came out of it after a few years when the sun came back and they regrow, and they just kind of rebuilt their population. But it still doesn't account for how people just kind of bypassed it and didn't blend in their culture. That's weird.
Yeah. I figure a lot of that stuff, would have been they found a place of refuge, and perhaps the place where they live at is kind of, I don't want to walk over the mountain. Let's keep going on the flatter ground. So, I think people are kind of like water in that way. It's the path of least resistance is probably going to be the one most often taken. But yeah, it's if you remember the tsunami that happened back in 2011 or somewhere around there.
Fukushima.
No. It's I think it would have been in the one that hit Indonesia. Maybe it was longer ago than that. Is that tsunami that came in and it wiped out quite a few people.
I can't remember when that one was. I remember the Fukushima one would have been 2011, 2012, somewhere around there in Japan or whatever.
Yeah, the other one maybe it was like 2004 to 2008. Whenever
maybe
hit.
Yeah.
But I should look that up and see if I can find it. There was an island out there with some natives on that island. Whenever the helicopter showed up, they were throwing spears at them. But yeah, you talk about some isolated populations. I think in the Amazon forest, I think there were some groups of people that I think first contact was made with them like 30, 40 years ago. So
yeah. It was 2020 and 2004.
2004. Okay.
So he's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of people in isolation like that, like tribes and things that's never seen other people besides who they see, in their little communities. Mm-hmm. But you also have people that live in the modern world, similar to the Basque people. Like you had the what's saying here, the Sardinians in Italy. Mm-hmm. They live on an island. It's like an isolation, and it's preserved their DNA this whole time. So they live on an island off of Italy. It's one of the most genetically distinct populations in Europe. And then you also have the Icelanders. And they have a small founding population. The Druze, they're close religious community and things like that. The Arinu people, indigenous population with unique genetic traits, and that's in Japan. And you had the Sami people, and they're native to the northern Scandinavia. And then, of course, you got the Kalash people, which I think everybody's kind of heard of them. I believe they're from, Lord, I can't remember. I got it pulled up right here, but it doesn't say. So with people in thick vegetation and things like that, I get that. Like the Aztecs probably traveled, like withdrew themselves into the Amazon, and that's where those tribes come from.
Yeah.
Same with over in Indonesia and things like that. I don't know. It'd be weird. I feel like if there's another reset in another 2,000 years, they're going to be saying that about regions like around here and where you live. Like these
Right.
people, nobody knows where their hillbilly accent came from.
Right. Yeah, that could be the case. It's the Melungeon people in the Appalachians. They were an isolated group for a long time.
I'm a Melungeon.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, and you're able to trace yours back because you were part of the Collins and some of the other families, that were there. I mean, you have direct ties to it.
Yeah. Hancock County, Tennessee, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what said.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hope we would recover pretty quick. It's hopefully there'll be enough people who knew enough about generating electricity and things like that we could have some basic luxuries again before too long.
That's the thing, Larry. Like when it comes to a reset, that's exactly what it is. It's like holding the power button down on your computer till it turns off. You know what I mean? It kind of cleans out all the waste. I feel like that's what it's essentially is. Cosmic Crumbs comments aren't coming through. Oh, that's totally. Go get bent, Totally. I hate to say, I hate that comments aren't coming through. But with a reset, it's kind of a theory that we get so far advanced that, in my mind, what it is, we get so far advanced that we end up destroying ourselves, and all the intelligent people, go with that destruction. And then we got to kind of start back at square one every time. Maybe not always right back at square one, but we might, be a few hundred centuries off in technology.
Yeah. It's from the history that we've been told, basically the world was pretty much the same there for a few thousand years. And until here recently, technology has, since the Industrial Revolution, in the 1800s or maybe the late 1700s when it actually began, technology has just gone crazy. In my mind, I'm seeing things now that I thought was always going to be just myth and all that. I used to watch the Jetsons when I was a kid, and we've got all that stuff. All that stuff can happen now.
Yeah, it's nuts. Well, think about it. Like, that's a good question, and don't feel bad for underestimating how smart people were before the last reset. Because I mean, the way that we're taught in schools and the things that we hear on the History Channel and stuff, I don't believe is true. Think about this is the one I use because this is the one that everybody knows, the pyramids. First off, people have trouble figuring out exactly how were they built. But the biggest thing is not for me on how they were built, but what they were built for.
Right.
They were not built as a chamber to house a body in.
No.
They weren't. They were built with a gold top on them. And last year they found with LiDAR that below them are 4 massive columns with spirals going around the columns, almost like a conductor in a way. Some people think it might be a staircase. And then at the bottom of this, they have 4 large rooms. So, in my opinion, the pyramids were some kind of electrical something for electricity.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
Steven,
Yeah.
can you say real quick? I think my audio's dropped.
Yeah. Yeah. The Thanos snap
No
that
problem. I'll be
you could
right-
probably be compared to that, Crystal, with the with that. It's if just like it's been talked about for decades. If somebody set off a nuclear bomb at the right altitude above the United States of America, it would wipe out probably 2/3 of our power grid. It would wipe out part of Canada's power grid and also part of Mexico's power grid with one bomb, set off at the correct altitude. And that would be a major reset, because I remember in 2000 when we had an ice storm here, I went for 16 days without electricity at my house. That was just over an ice storm, let alone the power grid and the power plants, transfer stations, and all that getting wiped out. If the place has if they've hardened their power grid to protect it from an EMP or something like that, then yeah, they could be up and running real quick, or they might not be affected at all. And there's some parts of the country that are kind of isolated from the rest of it, and I'm sure that they've taken care of it. And I'm sure that that'll be for people who are probably important, not people like me.
No, us. Totally probably getting there because he's in with that whole CIA group and stuff like that.
He's the MIB.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it ain't nothing to be scared about. Just teach yourself some basic survival stuff. I'm fat, but I might survive for a few months if something like that happens.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day, it was like, if anything was to happen on the soul, would you run and hide, or would you fight back? I was like, the only choice I have is to fight back. I can't run. I'm fat.
Yeah. Once you get to a certain age and you weigh a certain amount, your only option is to stand your ground.
Exactly. There ain't much else to either stand your ground or fall trying to get away.
Yeah.
Away. But
So that's it. Yeah, there was a time when I used to be able to run, but I think those days are behind me.
Oh yeah, long gone now for me for sure. But I don't know, the Basque region. There's a lot of cool things about it. We probably missed a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. We could always get it. We could always cover it again. Do some more research. I mean, it's fascinating to me though, the fact that group was isolated and their genetics have pretty much stayed intact during all those invasions that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
The Angles and the Saxons, they moved across and wound up in Brittany. They missed out on that. It's the Romans and everybody else who invaded, because that's what people do. They invade and they conquer.
No, it kind of makes me want to do an actual Tartarian episode. We were supposed to do it forever ago, and I had been working on it for like a year. And when I finally got to where I was almost done, I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm starting to get fired back up on it now.
Well, thanks for being here, Landa.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I've got to go here shortly myself.
Yeah.
Did we live close to a nuclear power plant? Where at? Is it in Tennessee? Tell me, Crystal, in the comments. But ooh, let's do some promos here and drop on out. Let's see. That's my biggest fear if anything happens. Like, that's always been my biggest fear of, like, because I was real into the zombie apocalypse was really going to happen at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going to happen with the nuclear reactors? I hope somebody takes care of those before everybody dies off.
Have another Chernobyl right in your backyard.
Exactly. So, remember, everybody, you can go and purchase hats now. Hats, regular baseball hats, trucker hats, bucket hats, what beanies, these hats, totally speedo, $99. It's actually a fanny pack, but he likes to tuck his stuff down in the front. Let's see, we got the t-shirts, the bumper stickers, the carry-on bags. He's got a little bag with a tie right here. You can get there by going to linktree.com/wearingthefolk. And clicking this little top right here, exclusive WITF merch. And then you got the links to everything. And don't forget, you can go over to Weird Realities and get caught up with all their awesome shows. Tully's right here texting me. Let's see what he says. Oh, he's just telling me that how awful we've done.
Maybe that will inspire him and Morgana to come back.
But, don't forget to go to Cosmic Crumbs, linktree.com/Cosmic Crumbs, Cosmic spelled with 0, for Tully's Thursday night show at 7 p.m. Eastern time, where he covers unique recipes and some stories. You can share your stories, you can share your recipes, you can join the mailing list. And you get, it looks like he added something, choose our next adventure. Let's see what this is about. Do you want to dive into Atia stories? What's your favorite true story? What's the most X-Files like experience you've had in your life? What's your local legend or horror story? Which one do we want to pick? Glitch in the Matrix.
That'll work.
That'll work. Oh man, some glitches, dude. I don't know. Oh, it is an Oak Ridge. You know, interesting fact, not fact, but theory is that everybody thinks that Stranger Things was based off of the happenings around up there in New York. Montauk. Yeah. Actually, it seems like it's probably based more on the collider in Oak Ridge. And here's something strange. I went to the Walmart in Oak Ridge because we go down there quite often. It's not too far away. And in the Walmart, they have more Stranger Things like merch and like stuff, like just memorabilia that I've ever seen. It's weird.
Yeah. That Montauk very well could have been just the herring to throw everybody off the trail.
You're right, Larry. Thursdays have gotten wild for Tully because he just can't make it on Friday night. But Till Death Do We Watch, the episodes have been recorded. They are being edited. They are coming April 20th on the first episode. We may pivot and we may not do camp, not camp, but Don't Go Into the Woods, because I forgot that 420 is a certain holiday for a certain sect of people. So we might do something that's more oriented toward that group of folk for the first one. I just got to figure out what it'd be. And between the notes, I don't know when Morgana's going to get to do it now, but that will be coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have some information about that as soon as possible. And do you have anything going on, Stephen? You been on any shows? Done anything recently?
No. It's right now I'm just listening to the dogs bark.
Nice. But you know, everybody's getting everything lined out. We'll get back to your 2-hour shows. I know everybody loves listening to us for 2 hours. It's just the best thing to do on a Friday night. But we do truly appreciate you guys coming here and hanging out with us. You all became family, especially Crystal, Landa, Larry, Ronnie, like everybody that's commenting, goes back and forth with us. We love you all to death.
Yes, we do.
So tune back in. I don't think we have anything going on tomorrow, do we? We don't.
No, I don't think so. I think we're gonna take tomorrow off.
Sweet.
I'll go change the oil in my truck.
I gotta go get bread from the Mennonites. I think I gotta meet with Tully at some point in the morning. And then I gotta go to Lexington to the Costco.
You're skipping out on Aldi's?
We got a specific thing we do, right? And that's how we gotta do it.
If you have your routine, you're gonna get what you need to get. Then.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know it exactly. I'll just follow her with a buggy, and she throws shit in that buggy, and I'm like, okay. And we check out. But thank you all so much for tuning in tonight, and come back next Friday at I don't even know, probably 8 p.m. 7. I don't know.
I don't know. Is Tully gonna be back next Friday?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not sure. We'll be back next Friday at either 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, one of the two.
One of them. So thank you all so much for watching us, because we are all watching you.